Etapu, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Harun Nefer. This is Kasank Peru with another exciting video for you. In this video, we're going to talk about how comedian George Lopez says Latinos staying quiet about Black Lives Matter is wrong. However, before I go into that topic, I want you to hit the like button on this video. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live and when I upload recorded videos. Also, if you want to know more about my spiritual teachings, we have free ebooks. You can scroll down below, click on the links, and download the ebooks and start reading today. Again, they are free. Also, if you're not already a supporter of ours on Patreon, you can do so for as little as $1, $5, $20 per month. You get exclusive access to instructional videos, videos on the esoteric, videos that would teach you how to meditate properly, how to put together a sigil, how to invoke spirits for protection, how to do a money ritual. We have videos on self-hypnosis to get rid of bad habits. And also we're doing Qigong videos. So it's a lot of things going on there on Patreon. So become a supporter. Last but not least, share this video with family and friends so we can get the revolution started. So Harun Nefer, how are you? You know, we are definitely living in challenging times. And a statement or an article has come out recently by comedian George Lopez, who I think is very funny, where he kind of criticizes other Latin celebrities for staying quiet in regards to what happened to George Floyd. And I want to talk about that article in Entertainment Weekly and get into the details of that because it has multiple layers and it kind of gives an indication as to what's really wrong in our country and what's wrong with the movement that we are finding ourselves in. And it's a good example of how the ruling elite can, influence individuals and actually take control of our movement. You see, the way that they work is not only through divide and conquer, but they finance both sides. They have a stake in both sides. So no matter who wins, they win. You understand? That is how they play the game. You think that, because you're for this political party or this candidate, that there will be progress. No, they're both financed and controlled by the ruling elite. So it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican, you're for Trump, you're for Biden, you're for Hillary, you're for whoever. They win. You see, they've constructed the system. They control the playing board. The pieces are all under their control. So no matter what you move, your pawn, your queen, your king, whatever, they win. So let's get into this very interesting article. And I'm going to talk a little bit about George Lopez, his background. And you'll see what I mean by how really entrenched we are in this system that only benefits the cabal. All right. So let's check this out. And this is the article in Entertainment Weekly. It says George Lopez says Latino celebrities staying quiet about Black Lives Matter is the wrong attitude. Let me get rid of this. Oh, my goodness. The comedian has been vocal about being in solidarity with the Black community since the start of the George Floyd protests. George Lopez has a message for Latino celebrities, and I'm going to refer to them as Latin Americans, okay? Celebrities who are choosing to stay silent during the George Floyd protests. Stop. You see some comments that are like, how am I supposed to help Black lives when they don't help us? That's the wrong attitude. You don't do something and expect something in return. You do it because it's the right thing to do. So I want you all to take a moment to think about that statement that George just made. It's very important. And we'll come back to that statement later because it's of such importance. We need to put a pin in that, okay, as they say. So give me 1 second here. Give me 1 second. My computer's acting very slow. Sorry about that. All right. Since the beginning of George Floyd's protests, which began in Minneapolis as a rallying cry for Black justice after Floyd was killed by a police officer, Latin celebrities have been asked by their fans to speak out in support of Black Lives Matter movement. Now, I may get these names wrong, please forgive me. Camila Cabello, Miguel, and Ricky Martin are some of the many that have shown their support via social media. However, popular celebrities like Bad Bunny, Maluma, J Balvin, Nicky Jam, and more have been called out by fans for the delay in or lack of an immediate response. And there is the man himself, George Lopez. Lopez, who didn't call out any celebrities by name, remembers being in Los Angeles during the 1992 Rodney King riots. In March of that year, King was beaten and stomped by a group of police officers in the San Fernando Valley during an arrest. The 4 officers were acquitted of any crimes, but the incident was caught on camera, leading to 5 days of intense riots in the area of in the area for the police brutality. I don't know why this article said that, because the feds got involved and a number of the officers did go to jail for violating Rodney King's civil rights. And if you haven't seen that, you should Google that video. It is very, very interesting. All right. Lopez remembers doing a comedy show at the Ice House in Pasadena at the time where he brought up the political climate during his act. I remember walking off stage and 2 tables of people were flipping me off as I walked by, Lopez says. The San Fernando Valley native has always been vocal about breaking minority stereotypes in his comedy act. People see color first. After a show in Houston, a guy came up to me and said, "I don't think you're funny." I said, "Why? Because I'm Latino?" He said, "Yeah, I appreciate his honesty, but it shows the stereotypes we're fighting," Lopez told the LA Times in 1992. So I want to stop here to go back and really address some things regarding George Lopez. Even though I think he's a funny comedian, one thing that I have noticed is that when you have these Latin celebrities get platforms like a sitcom, a TV show, they never really put Black or African Americans or ADOS or foundational Black Americans, however you want to phrase yourself, on their shows. Black people are always marginalized and never come on their shows. However, when Black people get a platform such as a sitcom, they try to be all inclusive. In the case of Bill Cosby with the Cosby Show, Bill Cosby made a concerted effort to make sure that he had Asian American and Latino American representation on his show. He didn't have to do that. And I have watched George Lopez's sitcom. It's now in syndication. And I kind of loved the show. I thought it was interesting, but I almost never saw an African American on the show, but I did often see white Americans on the show. So this is an indication of what's going on or what's wrong with things in this country. So let's address the elephant in the room, and let's talk about the dirty laundry among Latin Americans, because there is a lot of racism among them and how they view African Americans, all right? Not just in terms of them putting us on their shows, but let us go to this statement made by George Lopez. You see some comments that are like, "How am I supposed to help Black lives when they don't help us?" That's the wrong attitude. You don't do something and expect something in return. You do it because it's the right thing to do, the comedian tells Entertainment Weekly. This shows the ignorance of George Lopez. This shows that he has no idea what has happened in this country. You see, let me put it to you this way. There was this thing called civil rights in which Black people protested. They had dogs sicked on them. They had water hoses, splashed them. They were beaten. And this was because they were fighting for civil rights in this country. If not for individuals like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Latino Americans would not be enjoying the privileges that they have today. They would not be able to drink at the same water fountain as whites. They would not be able to sit and eat at the same restaurants as whites. So don't tell me that what have they done for us? How am I supposed to help Black lives when they don't help us? We have shed blood in this country so that you could come to this country and not be subjected to Jim Crow, so not be castrated and lynched. So what the hell are you talking about? And for George Lopez not to call that out, but just say you don't do something and expect something in return. What do you mean? What do you mean? Individuals like Marcus Garvey, the Black Panther Party, the NAACP, excuse me, has been at the forefront of the civil rights movement. Blacks in this country have undergone terrorism, terrorist activity against them. We have been lynched. Black men have been castrated. We have been marginalized. Let's look at Tulsa, Oklahoma alone with Black Wall Street, how those businesses were thriving. Black businesses were all burned down by racist white people. And still throughout that, Black Americans fought for civil rights, equal rights. And in fact, it was Malcolm X who wanted to go before the World Court to bring charges against the United States for human rights violations. And the World Court has subsequently stated that the United States has violated the human rights of African Americans. So don't tell me as Latino Americans, we haven't done anything for you. You see, there's this dirty little secret of the immigrant population. And when I say Latino Americans, I mean Cuban Americans, Dominican Americans, Puerto Ricans, and Mexicans. That dirty little secret that the immigrants coming here know about the racial totem pole. The racial totem pole is thus, that in order to gain privilege in this country, they know they have to step on the backs of Black people, because Black people are at the bottom of that totem pole. And this is why you will find that most Latin Americans, not all, align themselves with white interests. Look at the census. They check off white. Look at the Republican Party. They support in large numbers the Republican Party, even though the Republican Party has said some of the most horrendous racist things in the past and still do. You see, you have a group of people who don't recognize the fact that they are minorities. And we have to give praise to individuals like Ricky Martin, because Ricky Martin has always stated that his music comes from Africa, that he is African. He doesn't just associate with the Spaniards and the Taino Indians. He understands his heritage. And we have to give credit to other Latin Americans like Rosie Perez, who on an episode of The View stood up and spoke the truth when they were talking about how there's no racism between Blacks and Latin Americans. Rosie Perez says, yes, there is. She said that her grandmother couldn't stand Black people and would say negative things against them. Rosie Perez even took it a step further and said that there was racism within the Latin American community. Between the darker skinned Latin Americans, there were racism against them. And that many novellas, the Latin soap operas, often cast lighter colored Latin actors and marginalize the darker skinned Latin actors. So this is a pervasive problem. And you see the ruling elite, the oligarchy, takes advantage of this. But yet George Lopez seems to be ignorant of the fact of what our country. How is that possible? How could he not know about civil rights? Well, you know, there needs to be a requirement when immigrants come into this country that they learn about civil rights, that they learn about the Black Panther Party, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and they learn what terrorist organizations like the KKK, neo-Nazis, and Jim Crow laws and redlining has done to Black Americans, and the contribution that Rosa Parks and all of them have made, so that Latin Americans, when they get on the bus, they don't have to sit in the back of the bus, you see. So they need to check themselves because they're out of pocket. They need to start really understanding what this country was built on, and that was on the backs of ADOS, foundational Black Americans, African Americans, Negroes, who worked and bled and died for this country and for them to have the opportunity to come to this country and to partake in the fruits of this country. They are ignorant of the past and what has happened. And George Lopez is no exception. He should be ashamed of himself for saying that you don't do something and expect something in return. We have given so much to other immigrants and minority groups who've come into this country, and they in return have stepped on our backs to get to where they are. Now, let's take this to the next level. First, let me recognize the Magi's. Nikki Hetepu, Wise Woman, Namaste. Michael Asar, Hetep. Harmony, Namaste. Good to see you back. All right. So they need an education. And they need to shut the hell up and start standing up and stand in solidarity with us. Stop the racism within their own people and also directed at us. So let's get that straight. The other thing that we have to be very cautious of, and that we're playing right into the hands. Let me go back to the article in Entertainment Weekly. I want you to see how the article is positioned and what the narrative is about. All right. So what is the title of this article? George Lopez says, Latin celebrities staying quiet about Black Lives Matter is the wrong attitude. There is so much wrong with this title. I want you to understand what BLM is. BLM is an organization that was funded by George Soros, co-opted by a group of Black women who have no interest in furthering the rights of Black males. In fact, they are anti-Black male. They want to destroy the Black family in Black communities. That is what Black Lives Matter, BLM, is built upon, the destruction of the Black family. What they want to push is the LGBTQ community agenda. And that agenda is painting Black men as the enemy. And if you go to their website and you read their articles, you will see time and time again how they paint Black men as the criminal element. So when this article talks about support of Black Lives Matter, you are supporting a group that is directly opposed to what George Floyd died for. Can I get an amen on that? We have to be careful. We have to be careful. We are being played like a grand piano. As I said at the start of this broadcast, that you think because you're on one side, that you're on that winning side, never realizing that the ruling elite, the oligarchy, has bought both sides so that they can secure their victory. Black Lives Matter is a facade. And I do not support it, and you should not support it. And we're seeing how these political parties like the Democratic Party and all these other groups are throwing money and funding Black Lives Matter, which is funding your destruction. So what the title of this article should say is George Lopez says Latino celebrities staying quiet about Black civil rights in this country is wrong. Or ADOS civil rights or foundational Black American civil rights. Do you understand the situation we're in? Do you understand how we're being manipulated, how the game is played? The great Dr. John Henry Clark says, Black people in this country have no friends. We turn to our Latino brothers and sisters, and they turn their back on us. These celebrities are quiet. Why would you be quiet? Now is the time to use your platform as a celebrity to stand up and say, I'm in solidarity. I stand with my African American brothers and sisters. Do you think that you will not be a victim of police brutality? That you have a get out of jail free card? As I said, those immigrants coming to this country understand the racial totem pole. They understand who's on the bottom, and they understand what they need to do to climb their way to the top. This has to stop. This division has to stop. How is it that now, in my opinion, for the first time in this country's history, white Americans are standing side by side with Black Americans saying, you know what, enough is enough. But still, Latino celebrities are a little quiet on this issue. It is a shame. And it's also a shame that George Lopez doesn't know history, doesn't know what this country was built upon, the civil rights movement, doesn't know or understand how blacks have died and shed blood for this country. Where has he been? Who is he identifying with? I mean, how could you not know this? How could you come to a country that has gone through so much and not know the contributions that Black Americans have made to that country, and that the contributions that you are now enjoying because they have died for your rights as well? You see, they see themselves as exclusive. They see themselves as white. And I'm ashamed to say that. I don't want to say it, but it's the truth. They believe that if they identify with white American ideology, they become immune from police brutality. Oh, that's not us. That's them. You're going to get your butt kicked. As I have said with white Americans, that Black people, what we have gone through is the beta test, the experiment for what they will do to white Americans eventually. And now white Americans are realizing it. They know about these things now. They're awake. So why aren't the Latino population jumping on board and waking up? That's all I have to say. It's a shame to not know the history of this country, not know and appreciate and say, I mean, when we say thank you for your service to our veterans, every American needs to turn to an African American and say, thank you. Thank your ancestors for what they have done to help bring about equality and justice. I want to thank you for that. Thank you for your service. But somehow, the fact that our ancestors have died, bled for this country, goes unnoticed by a certain demographic. How could that be? I want to thank you all for tuning in today. Get an opportunity, please donate to the channel. As always, your donation would be appreciated. Don't give up hope. Things are going to get better. This is Kasak Ma'akaperu, son of Ma'an Tahuti. My aunt is the beautiful goddess Heteru, goddess of harmony. Until my next video, Amun Ra.